The Overwatch League, for what feels like the millionth time this year, is catching some strays with this community for some questionable decisions. This time the league is in the headlines for the change in their role star selection process. It was revealed that this season there will be a mandatory 2 role stars named from each region. So of the 4 role stars that we get per year, 2 are gonna have to be from the East no matter what on support, tank, and DPS. So let's start with the why. Why in the hell would they make this kind of decision? Well, from a surface level understanding, clearly they want to give the APAC players a bit more recognition, just because the West is a lot more popular, and the talent over here is much more loaded, and they're just more likely to get most of the attention this season. If they left it up to the voters, pretty much no Eastern players would be making the role star ballot this year. The East is in absolute shambles, it's in the worst shape it's ever been in, it's not getting any respect whatsoever because they're just a weaker overall region. Their skill level is not as high. So to compensate, this was the Overwatch League's idea. They're making it mandatory. It's feeling like we're forced to be picking these Eastern players who shouldn't even be in the conversation, while slowly giving less recognition to the people who truly deserve it. Am I the only one who feels like this is more like a participation award more than anything else now? What's the point of doing role stars if you're not recognizing the best players in the league throughout? You want to try and do a separate regional thing where it's the best from the West and the best from the East, but the East is such a small region. It barely even exists to begin with. Half of it is contenders teams. What's the point of the best from the West and the best of the East? These two are just on completely different levels. The Western region is just a far superior place in the Overwatch League right now. So having them on equal ground and robbing some of these players of rightful role star awards just does not make any sense at all. Why not just do separate awards for each region? Why not have 4 role stars for each position in the East and in the West? And to have it make even more sense, you can add on to it. You can make it deeper. You could do a Rookie of the Year for both regions. Hell, even an MVP and Coach of the Year if you wanted to. You want to give the East more recognition because you're afraid nobody's gonna vote for them. I understand it, but there's other ways around it aside from this. This is probably one of the worst outcomes you could have done. There's only a small handful of teams and players that are even worth talking about over there, and in return, you are sabotaging the West. You are making it less likely that some of the best players in the league are going to get the proper recognition that they deserve. Immediately when I saw this, I started thinking about the support situation. We're in a world where either Shu, Chio, or Fielder are going to get snuffed of a role star award. Yeah, you heard me right. 3 of the best players in the entire game, and one of them is not going to even get role star recognition. Chio is in a situation where he might not just get robbed of being in the MVP conversation, but also in the role star award selection. That is absolutely absurd. He is literally putting out the greatest support season by a main support ever, and he might not get anything for it. And let's say you do give it to him and maybe Fielder, well then you're robbing Shu, who obviously should be one as well. It's just a ridiculous cycle, and it goes into other roles as well. Support certainly has it the worst, but for DPS, for example, now you're going to only be able to pick 2 of the following between Lip, Stalker, Merit, Checkmate if you wanted to, Happy, Decay, even Alpha Yi, amongst others. Only 2 of those guys are gonna get selected now. The only place where it doesn't feel awful is Tank, and that's only because it's just been a less relevant position this season. You could probably get away with just giving it to someone in Fearless, and I don't think a lot of the community would complain, but you might argue a couple of other guys might get snuffed there too. Overall, it just hurts the validity of the award selection process, and makes it feel less legitimate, like it's being completely forced, when it doesn't have to feel that way at all. There's so many workarounds out there. We've seen OWL even be flexible in the past with their role star selection process. I believe it was in 2020, there was some kind of tie with the DPS role star, so they gave out 5 that year. You're telling me that you're willing to give out 5 for some lousy tie, but you're not willing to increase the number of role stars this year to account for the lack of love in the East? Make it make sense. It just never does. This constantly seems to happen, and I am so sick and tired of it. It's such a simple thing, it doesn't matter that much in the end, but it's just such a silly thing that's not necessary. Again, So many workarounds are out there, but they're not doing any of them. Like I said previously, you could do separate regional awards, and I think that'd make a lot of sense. They play in completely different spaces. That would be cool. I don't think anybody would mind that. 2, you can increase the number of role stars at each position to account for the number of Eastern players that you want to have without snuffing out some of these more deserving Western players. Albert also had a kind of similar idea, the general manager of the Florida Mayhem. He initially called this out when the change happened, and he said that it would probably make a lot more sense with it being region locked if they have a few more role stars at certain positions to make it more proportional. 4 tank role stars seems like the right number because there's less of them, but then you do double the DPS and supports to make it feel more even. That's another great idea. That makes more sense than what they're doing. Or maybe you could even just do 1 player from the East per position. It would still feel kinda forced, but not as bad because at least 3/4 of the awards are going to the West. Mathematically, it makes more sense to do it that way, right? The West has more teams, and more players therefore, literally like double compared to the OWL teams in the East. So mathematically speaking, because they're the bigger region with the bigger talent pool, they should be getting more slots compared to the smaller, less recognizable region. And I'm sure there's a lot of other workarounds that I haven't even thought of. Leave them down in the comments section below. I'm sure a lot of you guys could come up with a way better idea than what the Overwatch League has decided to do this year. Because now it's like, oh, the 2 best from the West and the 2 best from the East, when it just doesn't even feel proportionate or like they're even in the same class. You telling me that Skewed and Bliss is gonna feel the same as Fielder Chio or Shu Chio, Fielder Shu, whatever you want to do? No, absolutely not. It's literally the atomic bomb versus coughing baby meme. And don't even get me started on the potential voting propaganda now that you're opening things up like this. Those Eastern journalists, those Chinese journalists, they're gonna start their faraway 1987 for Roll Star agenda again. I just know it. I just know that somehow he's gonna end up being a Roll Star because of the voters over there. Oh my god, it's actually gonna happen. I really hope that at bare minimum, they pick some good people from each place so it doesn't feel totally stupid. Somehow, someway, someone that's undeserving is gonna get in there because of this voting propaganda. But hopefully most of it looks pretty standard, just given what we're working with. Like I was saying with the East, with the backline, you could go with Skewed Bliss, that would be cool. And then in the West, you're gonna go with a combination of Chio and Fielder and Shu. 2 of those guys will get in. On DPS, it's probably gonna be Lip, plus, I don't know, you could pick and choose. There's a bunch of guys there. And then in the East, it'll be like Leave, then probably some kind of Infernal player, or like maybe Prophet is a long shot, but I'd say probably Zest or MN3, most likely Zest because he's in the MVP race. And then on tank, I think it'd be the best looking overall. You could do someone Fearless from the West, probably. And then in the East, I think that Mag and Gushue would make a lot of sense, or you could throw in Hanbit if you wanted to as well. I think that probably would be the best idea, but just knowing how things are going to go, it's not going to look like this. It's going to look totally dumb, and we're going to complain even more. The league's made a lot of questionable decisions this year in a lot of aspects, but this one genuinely triggers me. The MVP conversation I could at least live with. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, but this doesn't make any sense no matter how I think about it in my head. I'm literally losing it. I don't know how they're so consistently good at making these bad choices. They literally have a 100% win rate with pissing off the community. I just don't get it, man. It's a joke. And the players recognize this. And the coaches and the GMs, they have been seen publicly making fun of this idea. How did they manage to screw up every single time without fail? How do they do it? How are they so good at it? What is their secret? How do they always manage to make the worst changes that are so unnecessary at the most inopportune times? I just can't do it, man. I can't. I'm gonna stop before I get too crazy with this. I hope you guys enjoyed the rant video and you understand the situation now. If you enjoyed the video, it would mean a lot to me if you could give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more Overwatch League videos just like this every single week. And be sure to let me know what you think of these role star selection processes down in the comments below. And until the next one, I'm out. Peace.